Hello and welcome to Math World. In today's lesson, we're going to look at some rules for multiplying bases with exponents. So our first rule we're going to look at today is called the product of powers property. And so product, that just means that we're going to be multiplying. We're going to be dealing with multiplication. And, powers just means that there's going to be an exponent. And property just really just means there's a rule, okay? It's the rule, the math rule for when you multiply bases with exponents. So let's go ahead and jump in. So let's say you have a number like 5, and it's raised to the second power. And 5 to the second power, if I multiply that by 5 to the third power, well, what's going to happen is I have 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. There's now 5 total 5s. And so our rule is going to be to take those two exponents, the 2 and the 3, and add them together. That's going to give me a total of 5 5s. The product of powers property rule is that when you have like bases, you add their exponents. Let's see some more examples. We could use a variable such as x to the 7th power multiplied by a like base of x to the 4th power. Using my product of powers property, I will keep the like base of x and add the exponents of 7 and 4, giving me a final total of x to the 11th power. That's the product of powers property. And it works even when you have more than one. So let's say y to the second power times y to the 4th power times y to the 6th power. As long as they all have like bases, I keep the base and add their exponents. 2 plus 4 plus 6. That gives me a total of y to the 12th power. That's the product of powers property. The other rule that we're going to look at is the quotient of powers property. Now, quotient means to divide. So in this case, what happens when we have division of powers, exponents? And again, the property just means it's the math rule. So let's see what happens when we divide. So let's start with something like, let's take 5 to the 9th power and divide it by 5 to the 2nd power. Well, in our division rule, we're going to subtract the exponents, because if you have 9 5s being multiplied and you divide it by 2 5s, the 2 5s are going to kind of take away 2 of those 9. And we're left with something like a like base of 5 raised to 9 minus 2. We're going to take away 2 of those 5s, and that would leave only 7 remaining 5s to be multiplied by themselves. So that would become 5 to the 7th power. We can see this again with variables. Let's say we have x to the 10th power divided by x to the 4th power. Again, I'm going to keep the like base and subtract their exponents. 10 minus 4 gives me x to the 6th power. That's the quotient of powers property. When you multiply, you add the exponents. When you divide, you subtract the exponents. Now, it's also important to know that sometimes we see division not written horizontally like this, but sometimes we see division written as a fraction bar. So let's say we have y to the 15th power divided with a fraction bar, y to the 3rd power. Well, a fraction bar means division. So again, we'll just keep our like base of y. We'll start with our first exponent, our top exponent of 15, and subtract the lower exponent of 3. 15 minus 3 gives us a final answer of y to the 12th power. So again, division or quotient of powers property, we subtract the exponents. And that's it. And of course, lastly, if you really wanted to challenge yourself, you could put both properties together. And let's say we tried something like having both multiplication and division in the same problem. Let's see if I can do that. Let's say I had x to the 4th power times x to the 5th power, all divided by x to the 2nd power. Well, if I did that, I would put both rules together. On top, I would have the x to the 4 plus 5. On the bottom, I'll keep that x to the 2nd. That gives me x to the 9th now on top, and still having the x to the 2nd on bottom. So I did my multiplication first, and then I can use my other rule of division, 9 minus 2, and gives me x to the 7th power. Putting it all together back here, I could have just taken that like base of 7 and done 4 plus 5 and then minus the 2. I'm adding the multiplying, subtracting the division. And that would have got me straight to the answer of x to the 7th. So there's our product of powers property and our quotient of powers property being put into full effect. Well, that's it for today's lesson, and I'll see you in class.